Formula One has been known as a man's world. In the history of the great and beloved sport, fewer women have taken part, and even fewer have participated in the race. The lack of female role models and the elite nature of Formula One mean that few made it through the ranks. With this view, women are never really encouraged in any area of the sport. But why is this the case? Formula One doesn't have any rules against female participants in any given year. However, the sport hasn't seen a female driver compete in an actual GP since 1992. This was when Giovanna Amati participated in a 3-race weekend in the 1992 season. Since then, there hasn't been a single driver in an actual GP, not to say that she's the only woman in the sport. There have been many over the years, but in recent decades, the number of women driving in the actual Grand Prix has dropped. However, there have been female test drivers for teams. One example is Jamie Chadwick, who is currently a development driver for Williams. But the million-dollar question is, what are the chances of Chadwick or any other female driver being seen in the sport? Well, most people who don't have a good understanding of the sport may think that besides needing to be a good driver, F1 isn't a difficult sport, but the opposite is true. F1 cars travel at a super speed around very tight corners, and it's not unlikely for F1 drivers to be pulling 4 to 6 Gs in every corner. With most tracks having 10 to 20 serious corners, they are constantly hitting those numbers. If you don't know what a G is, this is a quick update. A G is the force exerted on your body by gravity. 1 G is the normal weight you feel in the Earth's gravity, so 6 G is quite a lot. The average normal person cannot withstand any more than 4 G. Any more than that, one would likely black out due to a lack of blood reaching the brain. F1 drivers are always in a state of 2 to 4 G with spikes to 6 around corners, and yet they manage to do this for around 65 minutes straight. A clear sign is the much larger neck that all F1 drivers possess. F1 drivers always train their necks to help keep their heads in position while they're driving. Did you know that F1 drivers can lose up to 3 kg from sweat alone, and more in hotter races? F1 drivers are put up there with football players after a 90-minute match of running around. They are high-performance athletes. So where are the women? The first woman to grace the beloved sport was Maria Teresa de Flippis, who drove for Maserati and Porsche in 1958 and 1959. However, during that period, she received a lot of sexist remarks. Furthermore, people doubted her due to the fact that she was a woman. A race director at the time added that the only helmet a woman should wear is the one at a hairdresser's. The next was Leila Lombardi, who had the longest female F1 career at 3 years. This was a period from 1974 to 1976. During that time, she drove for March, Ram, and Williams. Leila is also the first female in history to score a point in F1. Or, well, half a point, because the way she did get a point was due to a shortened race in the 1975 Spanish Grand Prix. We move on to Davina Galicia, a British driver who drove in 1976 and 1978 for Surtees and Hesketh. In her time off for F1, she was the captain of the British Women's Olympic skiing team and competed 4 times in total. Next is Desiree Wilson, who drove for Williams. She only officially raced in a single Grand Prix in 1980. However, due to a war between the old defunct formula governing bodies, FISA and FOCA, she did an unofficial race in her home country of South Africa in 1981. We close off with Giovanna Amati, who drove in 1992 for Brabham, entering 3 races but not qualifying for any of them. Besides those 5 women, we've never seen any other woman in F1 or anyone who is putting in a decent race. So why aren't we seeing as many prospective female athletes entering the sport as we see men? Well, there are reasons, such as the fact that it is a physically demanding sport where fewer women are able to compete. The body strength needed in Formula One is extreme. Formula One's limited space allows the best of the best, or those with the largest wallet, to get in, and in recent decades, none of those have been women. We see many female drivers in other branches of motorsport, from female MotoGP riders to female NASCAR drivers. From Danielle Patrick to Sophia Florsch and Alice Powell, there's no shortage of female racing drivers in the world. However, making it to the pinnacle of racing is a challenge in its own. Despite what most people think about the F1, the physical and demanding aspects of driving an F1 car can be overcome by a female. After all, we often see female fighter pilots undergoing similar, if not more physical training than F1 drivers. They say that the nature of driving a Formula One car is a brutal and extremely challenging environment to be in. The challenges are not only physical but also mental. This leads to the conclusion that Formula One drivers are extreme athletes who need to be super fit and can withstand a lot of G-forces. Any driver, male or female, must undergo a lot of training. This racing fitness comes with years of experience in motorsport. Another reason is the personal background at the beginning of the sport. Formula One drivers start out in motorsports at a very young age. In the majority of cases, most F1 drivers started their careers at the age of 6. However, there just hasn't been as much of a push to get young females into the sport at this age. In addition, most women aren't up to the challenge. This is because they aren't encouraged in as large of numbers as males are. A man trying to get into F1 with just a year or two of motorsport experience faces the same challenges as a woman would. It's just that more males are introduced to motorsport at a very young age. One report from September 2021 suggests that just 3% of females in the USA are avid fans of Formula One. 84% of those asked weren't fans at all. Contrast this with the 14% of men asked who are avid fans, with just 61% saying they weren't fans. This shows that, for F1 in America at least, females are less likely to be fans of the sport than men. Modern society has changed in the last few decades. In the past, it would have been bizarre to see a woman driver in karting or any other form of sport. However, these days it's encouraged, and there is more support for the concept of female racing. What does this mean? This means that more and more women are getting involved in motorsport at a very young age. There have been other reasons for the lack of Formula One drivers. It mainly comes when the sport is referred to as a man's world. This has led to stumbling blocks for women who aspire to reach the pinnacle of the sport. In addition, we often see them turning their backs on F1 and furthering their careers elsewhere. In Formula One, there hasn't been a role model for women who want to pursue their dream in motorsport. The most recent is Susie Wolff, who was a test driver for Williams between 2012 and 2015. Although she never entered a Formula One race, she drove in the first free practice session of the 2014 German Grand Prix. This resulted in her becoming the first woman to participate in a Formula One weekend since 1992. Susie Wolff later drove in 2 more practice sessions in the 2015 Spanish and British Grand Prix before ultimately retiring from her role as Williams' developing driver. She added, saying that she had gone as far as she could in the sport, but set out to help other women in motorsports. Other than Susie Wolff, there are some female drivers in the junior levels of single-seater racing. However, most concentrate more on Formula One than grassroots motorsport. This results in them not getting as much exposure as the Formula One drivers. Another challenge that women face in getting into Formula One is getting approval from sponsors. Despite the changes in society, sponsors are still reluctant to support female racing drivers. In pursuit of an F1 seat, your budget is the most crucial factor that you need to consider. The majority of racing teams require a massive budget just to secure a seat. Without sponsorship backing, it is impossible to make it. Finally, it all comes down to statistics. It's clear that there's a very slim chance of anyone joining Formula One, regardless of gender. With only 20 Formula One seats available and millions of drivers across junior racing categories, you need to be an exceptionally great driver and have sponsorship to back it up. I would be surprised if at some point we don't see a female F1 driver who takes part in Grand Prix racing and is not just a test driver. Meanwhile, our current best, Jamie Chadwick, has so far won every season of the W Series. So what is the W Series? The W Series is a single-seater series just for women. The W Series started in 2019, so it's still something new in the world of motorsport. It's a surprise that it took so long for the women's-only racing series to be started. However, it is now a support series for F1 itself. It was announced in 2021 that the W Series would become a support series for Formula One. This is a massive stride forward, and it gives a bigger platform to work with and promote female drivers. So whilst we don't currently have any likely candidates for female F1 drivers, we could be seeing one hopefully soon.